This is Leafs Morning Take with Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill.
Now we've got a fight started here right off the bat with Rosehill.
30 minutes of live, nonstop Leafs talk starts now.
Well, just as I predicted, a Friday news dump, and here we are on a holiday weekend. It's a Friday around 4 Eastern time, and it's Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill to pick up the pieces of what has turned out to be a franchise-altering day in Toronto. The Leafs and GM Kyle Dubas parting ways. Rosie, thanks to take some time out of your busy schedule with your family. Your initial thoughts here?
Oh, dude, yeah, I was driving out west to BC, and was through the mountains. Didn't look at my phone. I pulled up to the cabin, and shit had hit the fan. So, forgive me for doing this on my phone, but obviously have to touch on this, dude. Honestly, I shouldn't say I wasn't shocked. I was surprised though, and it's just a lot to unpack. And I'm just stepping in here cold. I haven't even, well, I have poured my first drink, but not my second.
Oh,
so that tells you how much prep went into this. But I am surprised, I got to say.
This could have been our moment where we do that drinking show that we've been talking about at Pimping Barn Burner all those months. It could have been our time to shine, breaking down Kyle Dubas' last day as GM and just getting absolutely gunned. But at least one of us is doing it. To me, I think the big fallout, since you really didn't catch the presser, was the PR battle. So we heard from Kyle Dubas on Monday, but the back and forth has begun. And the rumors of the tension and the turmoil behind the scenes seem to be true. I talked to Frank Saravalli earlier on Friday, and he pretty much confirmed those sentiments. But the PR battle is what gets me. Like, I think people have to be careful not to believe everything they hear from Brendan Shanahan. It would be nice one day to find out what Kyle Dubas is thinking in his department and his side, how they felt about everything went down. But it is pretty crazy to see the timeline of how this all transpired.
It is. Well, it makes me think, let's get him on the show and have him break it down. He's probably be on contract still. Nonetheless,
yeah, he won't do it.
It is interesting. It makes me think that their relationship was frail and they were holding on by a thread. Because from what it sounded like, and again, you broke down the presser for me, but it seemed like they were kind of, as of a few days ago, thinking this thing would probably extend itself and the relationship would continue, and things kind of fell apart at the 11th hour is what I got out of it. So very interesting. It would be amazing to know what happened, but it tells me that their relationship wasn't that solid. They were literally up in the air, and I don't think either one of them knew for sure what was going to happen up until everything happened.
Yeah, and that's the unique part about this whole thing. And as somebody who has been in the corporate world, I could tell you right now, just be careful what you believe from both sides of the spectrum. The obvious answer is probably somewhere in between. But just a quick genesis of what we heard from Brendan Shanahan. Like, I think the biggest thing to pick apart was the fact that on Thursday, it seemed like a resolution was in sight where Brendan Shanahan came out. And this is a Brendan Shanahan who never talks to the media, by the way, came out and gave a chronological timeline, easy for me to say, of what transpired in the last week since the Leafs were ousted in Game 5 by the Florida Panthers last Friday. And he broke everything down. Again, this is a guy who rarely speaks, never says anything. So the contrast in that was unique for me. But just the fact that Thursday night, he said that Kyle Dubas talked to him and said he wanted to return as GM, but then through a new package, a new contract. It's always about the money, Rosie. It always seems that way. Again, you got to be careful who you believe, who you trust in this scenario. Again, it's probably somewhere in between, but money had to play a factor in this whole situation, no?
Yeah, and I mean, it's easy to think of that and then go, well, I thought Dubas was a family man, and how much did he make this year? Well, geez, he wanted more, and it's like, easy. Like, for all they knew, it was he got the year wrong. Instead of 3 years, he wrote down 4 years. You know, it could have been the smallest thing, and Shanahan's just looking literally to use anything to give to the public and say, here, take all this and unpack it. And it's like you say, you know, the corporate world, and you got to be careful how hard you bite on every little tidbit. But nonetheless, the fact remains is they were that fragile, and whatever that conversation was, the last one that they had before Shanahan decided, yep, I'm doing this, it was enough to sever the ties, man. And Yeah, I would love to know what happened. Would love to be a fly on the wall for that and to see the timeline. Is it exactly what Brendan Shanahan said? And I don't imagine we'll really get the opportunity to hear from Kyle Dubas and hear what he said. But he doesn't strike me as the guy who would, try to throw in an extra million and then I'll do it. It would be
Yeah.
a relationship first kind of thing, opportunity. Are we on the same page? And I think now it's proof that him and Brendan Shanahan just were not on the same page, or at least not close enough.
A lot of it had to do with autonomy, from what I understand, and money. Like the dollar amounts being thrown out there, who knows if they're true or not? But there's some saying he wanted $7 million per season. Like, obviously, Kyle Dubas holds himself in high accord, and I get that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what have you done? What have you won? I know he's had tons of success making the playoffs and season after season of mass point production every year for this team. They're one of the better teams, but it is a results-oriented business. And while Rosie and I both, we concluded at the end of the year that he done enough to come back and be the GM. Like, they should have given him an extension, which it sounds like they offered one. But at some point in time, like, I don't know how I feel about this, where it's like, I'm okay with moving on from Kyle Dubas. Like, I thought I would feel differently, but like, I was also under the fact and the belief that there was no way in hell you can come back with the same people after another massive disappointment here.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, it's now that it's happened and it's real, because I haven't really given myself the opportunity to think about anything. I just wait and see what happens and then kind of process. And I'm finding myself going, all right, well, who's going to run this? And they're going to want to put their fingerprint on it, and they're
Yeah.
going to come in and say, well, you haven't won in XYZ, and here's the reasons I think. And this seems to be the consensus on why this group hasn't won. So boom, I'm going to do this. And I hope it's a guy that has won Stanley Cups in the past and
Yep.
recently, and knows what the DNA and the blueprint looks like. And he comes in and he's like, here's where I see the problem. I'm going to fix it, and see what he does, and then see what the summer brings. I think it brings excitement, because something has happened and something is going to happen. Because honestly, I think, and you've done this more than me, but to go into another training
Hmm.
camp without much changed, you're going, how the fuck are we supposed to believe in this group when it's just proved itself not to be, a winner in the playoffs? And again, it's always the playoffs. It's not the regular season. It's not. And that's why I guess I'm realizing that's why you've been preaching that to me. It's just the regular season. Wait till playoffs. That's the
Yeah.
only thing that matters. And it's true with this group more than probably any other group that you can point to in recent memory. So it'll be interesting to see someone new definitely is coming in and is probably going to want to say, I need to put he's not just going to step in and say, well, go ahead. He's going to put
Yeah.
his mark and his stamp on it. So I can't wait to see who that is and what that looks like.
So a couple of tidbits first and foremost from what Shanahan spoke, and it was a pretty lengthy presser, but he said the new GM pretty much alluded to the fact that the new GM would make a decision on the coach, and he prefers somebody with experience. So I think
Mm-hmm.
first time GM is unlikely. I think the other thing I would add that I think is very interesting, and I try hard not to compare it to a different sport, but sometimes you have to make some decisions, man. It is a gambling sport to a degree, and I can't help but think back to the Toronto Raptors. Dwayne Casey, dude, won Coach of the Year. Masai Ujiri, the goats of all goats in the NBA, is like, dude, you're fucking done. See you later. Nick Nurse gets hired internally, and they end up winning the NBA championship. Granted, again, you get Kawhi Leonard, and that's a bit of a different story. But you have to be able to make tough decisions. And again, who knows about the timeline? Who knows what's going on behind the scenes? There's quite clear there's been tension for a while. But I think when you're in a position like Brendan Shanahan is, you have to make tough decisions. Sometimes they pay off, sometimes they don't. And if that means getting rid or parting ways, whatever they want to structure the wording of, a relationship with Kyle Dubas that he's been with the organization 9 years, 5 years as the GM, you got to make that decision and you got to move onwards. And he's already said that he's got some candidates in mind, but that's the big thing I took away is that he wants somebody with experience.
I would think so, and that's good. That's a good thing to hear, because I think he realizes that no matter who you are, and I think Kyle Dubas is kind of a pretty charismatic, special type of person to be able to accomplish what he's accomplished in that world in such a short time. There's got to be something about him that gets the job done, makes people tick, whatever it is, and good for him. But whoever you are, there's going to be lessons learned and growing pains no matter what the situation is, when you get into that world and you're green and you don't have the experience, and I'm sure the Hall of Fame of all Hall of Famers will tell you that that is the case. So I love to hear Brendan Shanahan say that I want experience right now, because I want someone to step in and say, I know exactly what your fucking problem is, because this reminds me of my team in 2006 where this blah, blah, blah. And we built it this way because we didn't, and he'll have some experience or some analogy on it. And if he wants this job and he's fit for the job, he'll come in and he'll say exactly what it is that's wrong that he's going to address. And I think we can all, figure out for ourselves what that probably is. We've been talking about it since, forever, but especially since they got beat out. And, a guy's going to come in and make changes with a fresh set of eyes without any ego involved on, well, I have an affinity for this guy. And I remember when I signed that contract and I still think he's got something left in the tank, or whatever happens in that situation. So you got to cut that cold. And again, I'm excited to have a guy come in, fresh eyes, and I want that experience. I want a guy with at least one cup in, this century, who's like, I understand this league, I understand this hockey, I understand these types of players from this era, and this is what we need. And then he's got to go to work trying to get that done.
I'm curious to get your take, and I thought we were very careful the way we handled the locker cleanout presser by Kyle Dubas, recognizing mental health is a real thing, and we totally comprehend that. And it's a tough job to do, especially in this market when you have two dope heads like us criticizing you on a daily basis. But we talked off air, we talked about it a bit on air, how much of that was a PR stint. Like, I'm not saying it was a whole PR stunt. I'm sure the Dubas family, it's been a tough year, man. I could only imagine. I do not envy the gig. Don't envy the job whatsoever. I think it's hard to be the GM, specifically the Toronto Maple Leafs. But I don't know about you, dude. It had that feel of like, you can't fire me because I quit mentality. I'm not breaking up with you, or you're not breaking up with me because I break up with you. Like, it just has that feel. And again, I know people are going nuts on social media saying, Brendan Shanahan, how could he handle this situation like that? Again, I think it's somewhere in between. And people are just so naive to believe everything people say these days.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. For some reason, I get the impression that Kyle Dubas is being honest. He talked about,
Yeah.
I like this job. I'm not going anywhere else. I fucking promise you that. He's being honest. I'm not packing up my family, my
We'll see
kids out
about
of
that.
school, their friends in this. Like, not a fucking chance. Doing the job in itself we're kind of teetering on it right now because it does take so much. But he basically said, I won't say no to doing it again, basically. And after talking with his family and stuff like that and weighing the pros and cons, I bet you they didn't come to much of a, there's no answer to it. It's a great job and opportunity and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it takes a lot of other thing. And they've been doing it for 5 years as a GM. And I can just imagine he's missed some, birthdays and coaching the teams and blah, blah, blah. And when push came to shove, I think it makes sense to corroborate Shanahan's story that they said, well, we can't really make up our mind, but how about if they fucking pay us $7 million? I'll do it for another handful of years. Then we never have to worry about fucking money or anything again. We can literally do whatever we want, and we'll be in our early 30s still. Like, if they give us that, then we'll do it again and we'll jump on board. And if they say no, then the decision's made for us and we'll move on to the next chapter. That makes total sense to me. And whether that happened or not, I don't know, but it makes sense. And yeah, people get worked up about everything, man. And again, I'm just focusing on what's coming down the barrel. Press conferences aside, I'm gonna have to go back and look at them tonight and see what you can read into, see what it lead it up to, and it's just really interesting, man. And again, I'm kind of surprised that this has happened, and I can't wait to see what happens further. It's a much more exciting spring than I thought it was gonna be.
It really is bizarre. And again, I told you when I joined forces with you in October, lean on me a bit because I've been in this industry for like 12 years. And I said, just wait till the Stanley Cup playoffs. And on Monday, I said, dude, this is the calm before the storm. The exact same thing happened with the Raptors where Masai Ujiri, the team president, did not speak for 4 or 5 days. We all fucking knew what was happening. Something was happening behind the scenes. And then the same old bullshit where they roll out at 3 Eastern time on a Friday of a holiday weekend. And this is what you get. You and I having your first drink here. And it is what it is. Like, it's so fucking predictable, man. And anyways, like, I just think it's so intriguing on so many levels. Oh, yeah.
You should be able to bet on it because you're fucking bang on with pretty much the whole season, dude. Like, playoffs and everything. Maybe you didn't think they'd win the first round, but everything you just said has been bang, 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 like clockwork.
I called round one. I thought they would finally push through. I never in my wildest dreams I could have predicted what happened in the second round. And, Shanahan said that I like that he said the fact that it's about the Stanley Cup. It's not about the first round. I totally agree with that. Like the jubilation, I get it. I was one of those idiots partying on King Street West after they won a fucking playoff series. Like it's insane to me, but I get it. There's so many question marks, Rosie, that come out of this from like who will be the head coach? Is it going to be Keefe? Who's the next GM? To me, automatically, I thought to the relationships that have been fostered by Kyle Dubas in his 9 years with this organization, 5 as a GM, the last 5 as a GM. What does this mean for Austin Matthews and William Nylander, man? Because I was talking to Frank Saravalli earlier. He said it with me. The price may have gone up for both of these guys, ultimately.
We'll see, dude. There's no shortage of, like, after the playoffs, I was like, fuck, it'd be cool if the Leafs went on a little run and we could change the narrative and talk about different stuff and think
Yeah.
about different stuff. And it happened to a point of, okay, we got over that little hump. It's more of like a footnote, right? Or like an honorary little ribbon. Good for you. You did the one thing that you couldn't fucking do for no reason at all. You know what I mean? Okay, good for you guys. But then same old shit at the end of the day. And I didn't think it was going to be that exciting of a spring. And, we're going to hum and ho and hum about rumors. And all of a sudden,
Yeah.
shit has just, with one little flick of the switch, it's a whole new world. And for some reason, I have like Ray Shero or something coming in.
Yeah.
Or somebody like that.
A winner.
And just be
Yeah.
a winner, a proven fucking
Yeah.
winner with a track record. And, he's not an asshole. You're not making this huge statement saying, we just hired Mike Babcock and he's not going to take any shit. And you watch this team get turned around. It's like, fucking settle down with the aggressiveness. Bring in a guy that Shanahan can have a good relationship with. Let that guy decide if he wants to work with Sheldon Keefe or not. That's why Brendan Shanahan's not doing that. Let the man who's going to work with him every day decide if they have a good relationship or not. No different than when me and you met up and saying, is this going to fit to do a show together? Maybe we're on completely different planets, but it's like, do you want to work with this guy every day? And he's allowed to make that decision now by the sounds of things. And I think that's cool of Shanahan to say, I'm letting this guy decide. It's pretty annoying when guys hold their cards so close to their chest. And if Brendan Shanahan doesn't speak for a while and then he comes out with something like that, I'm fine with it because he's smart. He wants to get all the information, have everything on a plate, and then say, boom, I'm going to come forward. I'm not supposed to be the guy on the front page of the paper every freaking week, but he comes forward, makes this announcement, has a decision, does his job, weighs the pros and cons. Like, as far as everything that's been handled so far, I'm on Team Shanahan, man. He didn't do anything weird or stupid or wait till fucking August or like, what? He's just, boom, it all makes sense. And I love it. And again, there's no shortage of stuff to go forward and talk about all spring long. So I'm pretty pumped. The more I think about it, the more my mind's just going, man, like, if he can tweak this fucking roster and like pull off a couple of deals and do something in the draft or do something free agent or do something with Marner, whatever, man. I mean, the sky's the limit to what this new guy that we don't even know who it is can do going into training camp. And I mean, with the team's identity, with the goaltending we have now, you put a few pieces in place and all of a sudden there's legit reason again to be fucking jacked at training camp.
I just hope they don't go internal. And again, everything we heard from Brendan Shannon suggests otherwise. They want somebody with experience, maybe Lawrence Gilman internally. Again, a lot of people are looking at him. Brandon Pridham doesn't have the experience of being a GM, but he's been an AGM and a capologist for many, many years. K. Rizzi writes in, the 180 from beating Tampa to now is totally insane. That is a good point, Rosie. If you think about like 2 weeks ago, our conversation, we were jacked up. We were fired up. Like, dude, let's meet up in the Stanley Cup final. Let's have some drinks. Let's party. And then they lose in 5 games to Florida. By the way, the Panthers are for fucking real. What a game. Quadruple OT. Of course, Matthew Tkachuk wins. It doesn't score against Toronto, but they seem to be a team of destiny. Sometimes you have that feel, and I'll be honest, I had that feel following the first round. At least won 3 games, 3 different games in OT. I had that feel, and then Florida brought us back to reality.
It is funny, man, because I remember after the first round, it was like, we didn't play our best and we beat Tampa. So it's like, let's just assume they got their act together and we're going to fucking play our best hockey. Like you're thinking of those games in the regular season where it was just like, oh my God, nobody can beat that, and you're expecting that in the second round. It was the opposite. They played quite well and didn't get anything go their way. And I'm not bitching about refs or anything, just no puck luck. They got goalied. They were a little stymied. They're gripping their whatever the fuck, but they outplayed them in the first 2 games. And it's like, wow, like this is so Leafs. This is so Leafs of this to happen. But we'll be there on game 3 and we'll flip the script. They do a 180 from that and take a dump in their fucking
that was a massive dump.
And they're on the verge of being swept. So then they win a courtesy game and she's all fucking done. It is so crazy, man. And I knew that following this team was going to be that way. I know from experience, and you told me that everyone knows it, man. And fuck, man, like you titled this thing, it's a franchise altering day. And those don't happen every day, but when they do, it's always lots to talk about, and I'm always pumped for the unknown that lies ahead.
Just the first chapter, my man. Appreciate you taking some time. Again, a busy cottage weekend with your family. It is a holiday weekend. Love that news dump. I finished the initial Leafs morning take on Friday with Carter Hutton saying, I know a news dump's coming. And an hour later, after we finished that show, there's your news dump. Kyle Dubas out as a GM. Thanks for this, Rosie.
Yeah, it's a cabin, not a cottage, bud.
Okay, whatever you guys fucking call them out west. Have fun, have a couple drinks, and we'll talk on Tuesday, okay, bud?
Maybe sooner if more shit hits the fan. I'm here all weekend.
Nah, buddy, out of office. Yours truly out of office. After the Friday I just had, out of office. Many thanks to everybody in the chat. Producer Alex, you were fantastic all day long. That's Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga. Thanks so much for listening to this bonus podcast. Kyle Dubas out as the GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Take care.